How's it going? Hope you're doing well so far. In today's video, I kind of wanted to give my thoughts and opinions on, I guess, like a general overview of, what I think about Black Desert and if I think it's worth playing. And I guess just sum everything up. Um, I think this game is definitely worth playing for a very particular type of person or player. And for some people, this is going to be a game that they really enjoy, and then for, I would assume, a pretty large portion of people, this is a game that they wouldn't, even think about touching with a 10-foot pole. And for anyone who doesn't know, Black Desert is an extremely long-term grinding based game. It doesn't really matter what activities you're doing in the game. You're looking to make some sort of progress, whether as like somebody who does like crafting and life skills, cooking, processing, alchemy, all that sort of stuff. That's a huge grind in and of itself. If you're somebody who plays and wants to do like PvP, again, huge grind there. If you're somebody who just wants to kill monsters and grind in a circle, that's obviously the, I guess, portion of the game that the majority of players interact with. And it almost doesn't really matter what content you decide to get into with Black Desert. There's going to be some sort of long-term progression, long-term grind, basically behind that activity. So if you're somebody who likes grinding, then Black Desert is definitely a good game for that. If you like long-term progression, this game, you could safely play this game for, there's some people who play like 8 to 10 hours per day, and then they've been playing this game for years. If that's the kind of player you are and you want to do that with this kind of game, it definitely has room for that. Or if you're more on the casual side, like I would kind of say that I am myself, I'm logging a little bit more than an hour per day these days right now, just because I've had a little bit more flexibility at work, and I've been trying to build up this channel. But if that were not the case, I probably used to play more like 5-6 hours per week, and I was still making really good progress. I would say that I was progressing pretty much on par with some people who were playing a couple of hours per day if they weren't spending them very efficiently. So the good thing about this game is that it's very flexible and it's accepting of a lot of different playstyles. So depending on what kind of player you are, as long as you can stomach the grind and this is like something you enjoy, I think Black Desert in some capacity would probably be worth it to you. The next thing that may put someone off of the game, I guess I'll probably just lump these two together, but the two things that might potentially put someone off of the game before they even give it a try are going to be the elements of pay to win in the game and also the RNG enhancement system. And I just want to say that I have played Black Desert on and off since the North American release, and I have spent money on this game, but I basically, in the past, I had felt like I had needed to spend money on this game, but now, especially as a casual player, they have implemented a lot of catch-up mechanics. They give out a lot of the stuff that you normally had to pay for back then for free, or like via quest lines and stuff like that now. A lot of the stuff inside the cash shop that, back then might have been like required for you to spend money on, you can now obtain that in-game pretty much all for free. And a lot of it is I guess time consuming, but not necessarily to a completely unattainable degree. So in that regard, the like pay to win aspect of Black Desert has significantly improved from in the past. And that was also another reason as to why I decided to come back to Black Desert. A lot of the stuff kind of changed from back then. It's a lot more accessible for somebody who wants to come in and play the game as a free-to-play player. Yeah, if pay to win was one of the things that was holding you back, it definitely still can exist. There are certain forms of pay to win inside this game. I'm not really going to cover them all because this video would be like 30-40 minutes long, but there's definitely some elements of pay to win still existing in the game. However, they have been minimized, and as a casual player who does participate in PvP every now and then, I never feel like expending more money is the answer, I guess. I just never get that feeling. So that might satisfy some people who are kind of interested or on the fence, but are scared about the pay to win. The other aspect is the RNG enhancement system. And back in the day, this used to be, I guess, a larger problem, but now the RNG enhancement system, you don't really even interact with it all that much. Basically, you create a season character, and you finish the season, you enhance your season gear with season materials, and you do all that with the RNG enhancement system, and it kind of sucks, but the rates are boosted, and if you look up a quick guide on how to basically do it right or do it efficiently, or figure it out on your own, honestly, you could figure it out, and you'll still come out with basically season gear or hard cap season gear, and that puts you right at a level where you're not necessarily like competitive or anything like that, but you have the ability to explore a very large portion of the content in the game. You also have access to a couple of pieces of content that normally back then would have taken hundreds and hundreds of hours to get to. And you can also participate in guild wars and node wars and stuff like that, which I'll get into later with the gear that you get right out of season. And once you get out of season, pretty much all of the gear up until, I guess, very end game, like kind of hard cap, you can just buy off the market. So you don't have to enhance anymore. And me personally, I don't enhance. I think out of all of the gear that I have on my character, I have enhanced this one piece of gear, and that's it. All of this stuff I got through either the market or guaranteed enhancement means where, there isn't a chance for failure, and I'm still progressing to a point where I'm getting into the upper percentages of the player base. And I have not had to, I guess, enhance any of my own gear. I plan to continue that way until I get to the last couple of upgrades that I would, reasonably need for my character. And you could very well sustainably not use the enhancement system for your entire time that you play Black Desert, and you could still get yourself to a pretty high level of gear. And be, I guess, semi-competitive. So if the RNG enhancement system was something that was keeping you away, again, this is another, I guess, gripe of the game that has been addressed by the developers and somewhat alleviated. Again, elements of it still exist, especially once you get to the end game gear where people are not selling that sort of stuff, so the only way to really get it is by enhancing it yourself. Aside from that, you just don't have to use it. It's there if you want to, but you don't have to do it. So those are like the two, I guess, major cons for most people. However, there's one more con about Black Desert that I honestly don't think is talked about enough, or really hardly at all. And I honestly think this is the worst of them all. And for me, that's going to be in-game performance. And that's going to be basically divided between, I guess, like the game optimizations, like how it runs on hardware, and also the network and network infrastructure. So, as most long-term players know, the game is it doesn't run very well, especially if you are on any sort of, I guess, system with like multiple threads and cores for your CPU and stuff like that. It's just not optimized very well. And in order to get the game to even run at what for me was a semi-playable state, it took a lot of tweaks in and outside of the game, downloading third-party softwares, just to basically make sure my my game was just running for me at what was an acceptable frame per second or frames per second. And then the other thing is that for the network side, I live in the Midwest and the servers are located, I think, somewhere in California, if I remember correctly. And I have fiber optic internet. I generally get anywhere from, 10 to 50, 60 ping at most on most video games that have servers in North America. And it doesn't even really matter where. They could be servers in New York, they could be servers in California, and I would get roughly, 50 ping at the max. And with Black Desert, I oftentimes will find myself getting levels of ping that are in the 70s to over 120 sometimes. And that can cause a lot of issues with playability, especially for me. I just don't like playing on high ping. The only time I've ever, I guess, stomached playing a game with high ping was when I was playing, various games on basically different regions. And obviously then it's way more expected because the servers are outside of my country. And for Black Desert to have such terrible network infrastructure, especially for a game like this where there's a lot of moving pieces, there's a lot of data being sent back and forth from the client to the servers, it just doesn't make a good experience when, things are basically not happening the way that they should. It has a lot of effect on PvP, the outcome of PvP matches. It has a lot of the effect, a lot of effect on like how efficiently and effectively like your class can be played and how it feels. For some people, it completely determines class choice and everything too if their ping is too high. And they have made it better. And back in the past, it was infinitely worse. It was pretty much in an unplayable state. Like I don't even know how or why I played the game for so long when I did back then. But the issue still persists, and there isn't a real good solution, or at least a solution that they've provided. And the community, especially the PvP community at large, has kind of resorted to just using third-party tunneling services. And for me personally, that leaves a really sour taste in my mouth, that you can see a lot of your players who are paying to play and support your game, and they're struggling with ping to the point where they're going and giving revenue to a third-party company just to make your game more playable, as opposed to just figuring out a solution that works for the player base that you are supporting and that is supporting you as a company. And I just don't like the idea that the cost or the burden of that is being placed and forced onto the consumers. And for most people, if they don't play with these tunneling services, the game is practically unplayable. I personally do not use tunneling services. I have tried them before. I can't really tell if they work or not, but I guess from a moral standpoint, I don't agree with it, so it's just something that I won't use and probably never will use. And for the time being, I just have a lot of issues with desync and connections to the server and stuff like that all being interrupted. And it leads to a really horrible gaming experience sometimes, and it was the absolute sole reason why I ended up quitting the game so many years ago, back when the desync and the lag was significantly worse than it is now. So fortunately, that has gotten a little bit better. It's still in a state that I guess for some people would consider passable. For me, it's passable considering I'm playing the game again and I have been playing it for so long. However, I I think that the game has been around long enough, the player base has been loyal enough that I think this is something that they should have already addressed, or at least taken more steps to take care of and fix. And just the fact that they can see that all of these different content creators and people that play their game are openly, um, I guess, advising and supporting the use of third-party tunneling services, and the legitimacy of those, I guess, is anecdotal at best. Some people it works, some people it doesn't. And to just see that basically in your game and not address it for one is, I don't know. For me, that just leaves a horrible taste in my mouth. And if anything, I can definitely see related issues being one of the main reasons why somebody would stop or just not play Black Desert at all. So the next thing that I did want to talk about, getting into some of the positives of the game, it's going to be the combat, for sure. There isn't anything in this entire, I guess, MMO market that even comes close. The only thing I would say that even remotely resembles this sort of combat would be something like Vindictus, or I don't know, Dragon's Nest, or some game like that. I guess Blade and Soul to an extent, but that game just kind of sucks. Um, Sorry if you play Blade and Soul, but that game was amazing when it first came out. But yeah, in my humble opinion, that game really sucks now. But um, there's just nothing that even competes with this style of combat. This is the most fluid, fun feeling action combat that I think of really any MMORPG out there. And even though that the core content of the game is basically, as you can see, just running around killing monsters in a circle with a very nice flashy combat system, and the monsters are basically meaningless. They're just like models with some stats like HP and damage and stuff, and they just literally run at you in a straight line. Not very engaging. Um, the, I guess, combat system, the control scheme for the characters, the class identity, all of that stuff in this game is so strong that it feels good to just control the character and just play the character. It doesn't even matter for me, and I guess I would assume a majority of people to, like, I guess, have engaging monsters and stuff to kill. It's just like it feels so good to control and play the characters that is enough to keep people playing. And it's a shame that it's taking them so long to figure out a way to utilize this combat system for something, I guess, engaging and more attention grabbing. They're just, I guess, satisfied with the current state of game in terms of like the combat mechanics and stuff like that. And I don't know, they're releasing like dungeons and some other stuff that have like mechanics, and a lot of the end game grind spots have some sort of gimmick to them, but all in all, it's pretty shallow. Um, if you're looking for complex mechanics and stuff like that, that's just like cool. You definitely won't find that here outside of the classes. And that for me is kind of it's a shame for sure, but at the same time, it's just a testament of like how good the combat actually is in this game. Because if they can have content like this be the main, I guess, source of people's playtime, and they still can retain such a large player base for extended periods of time, it really just goes to show like how solid, how fun, and how fluid this combat system is, and how there's just nothing even comparable. And so with Black Desert, you know, if you kind of get sucked in with the identity of your character, like the feel, um, skills, the just the overall feel of the combat and everything, it just sucks you right in. And if you're somebody who can appreciate that sort of, I guess, style of gameplay, I can definitely see this being a long-term option for somebody like that, especially if you like grindy games. However, as I stated before, there are some downsides to Black Desert. I believe I covered some of the main ones. I'm pretty sure I've missed out on a couple, but for me personally, those were like the big 3 or 4 downsides of Black Desert. And overall, I think the game is in a significantly better place now than it was back then. And I I do not and would not hesitate to recommend this game to somebody else anymore in its current state. However, if you ask me that question back then, maybe, I don't know, 3 years ago, my answer most likely would have been a resounding no. Whereas now, for me, it's definitely one of those games where I can see why people hate it, and I can most certainly see why people love it. And if you are somebody who would fit the bill for somebody who loves this type of game, I think this game is probably the best you can get in terms of, you know, combat and things like that, if that's stuff that you care about. So if you're on the fence about it, I do recommend that you actually give it a try for yourself. Oh, nice. I got the whole piece. Yeah, you give it a whole try and just see if it's something that sticks, you know? The combat is great. The life skills and like some other stuff that the game has, it's all great, at least in my opinion. And with seasons, you can really get a feel for the game pretty early on without investing any money, without investing too much time. And it's honestly just a good game. And it feels good to say that finally, because it definitely was not back then, even though I still played it. And I just hope that, you know, if you're on the fence about trying the game, that you give it a shot and, you know, just let me know what you think. And hopefully I'll get to see you in game. Aside from that, thanks for watching my videos and supporting my content, and I'll see you again in the next video.